Hello, my name's Oliver and welcome to my workshop. In today's video we're going to make some sills for Pandora that will not only make them more rigid and stronger and handle better, but will also make it look sleeker, sexier, lower and just overall more awesome. So this is the 1mm sheet steel that's going to form the outer sill. Now I could, I suppose, use thinner stuff to make this sill, but the outer sill isn't just aesthetic, it is a vital part of the rigidity of the structure of Pandora, and this is true to what the original was made of. And along with the inner sill, it forms basically a box. It's like a chassis rail that runs along the outside. Now cars like the Elise and the Exige and a lot of mid-engine cars use really big sills that you have to climb over, and the reason they do that is one, to move the driver and the passenger closer together in the cabin, but the second one is to have as much rigidity as possible. And rigidity is something that a lot of people who modify classic cars take for granted. And there's a lot of people out there who put a lot of power and really grippy tyres on cars that were never meant to take it. And before you put 400 brake horsepower, 600 brake horsepower, 1000 brake horsepower through a chassis that was only designed for, 250, it's something that you really need to take into consideration. And okay, we are not putting 1000 horsepower through Pandora, not even 400. It's going to be, just a bit more than 250 probably. But she is going to have some really grippy tyres on her. And this is an incredibly short wheelbase car that will have a heck of a lot of mechanical grip. And we have to prevent that grip from twisting the chassis. So rigidity is absolutely everything, and it doesn't get talked about enough because it's quite a boring subject. But these 1mm thick sills, along with all the bends and the curves that will make them up, will make for some incredibly stiff panels. And add that to the inner sills with the dimpled eyes and the door bars all being welded together. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot stronger than a lot of even modern cars, which is saying something because modern cars are incredibly stiff. Right, let's get this cut out. Let's get this cut out, shall we? So we've cut one out, and before we get all fancy and start putting bends and stuff, we've actually used that one as a template for this one. Just laid it on the steel and drawn around it, just to save time, and it makes it loads easier. Luckily, the sheets of steel are just wide enough, exactly, to cut out 2 sills. That's handy, isn't it? There we go, 2 sills chopped out and ready for bending. Now we've cut out our, what is it the Americans call it, a rocker panel. Now we've cut out our sill, we have to bend it into being an actual sill and not just a flat piece of steel. And to do that, I need help. I can't do it on my own. I'm just one man, and this entire thing needs to be bent as one piece. If I bend it bit by bit by bit all the way along, it'll just end up all wibbly wobbly. So to do that, I'm requesting the help of my next door neighbour, who just happens to be a world-class engineer, and my father. Come here, Dad. This is my dad, and he's been on this channel in every single video nearly. Anytime there is a pair of hands that aren't these hands, it's my dad. But you've been shy, haven't you?
Horribly shy.
My father is an incredibly modest man, but quick CV. What, ex-RAC rally mechanic, rally driver, rally car builder, builder of tilting trains, prosthetic joints,
Jet engines.
jet engines. Yeah, my dad's pretty good A hell of a lot better than I am. And any time that I need help, he's the man that I go to. And up until now, Dad's been kind of incredibly modest and not wanted to be on camera, but for this job, it's unavoidable. So I finally got him on camera. Right,
Right, let's get cracking. Okay.
And the answer to how you do this is with great difficulty. We should point out that in neither of our CVs is panel beater or coach builder.
For obvious reasons.
Next, we're going to put the gentle curve into the sill that follows the body line, and to do that we're going to use a piece of pipe that we've got left over from putting the, what was it called, the eco filter into the garden, because it just happens to be the perfect diameter. Now we've put a bend in it and we've put the radius in it, it's time to bend it this way and turn it into that channel section. And to do that, we've modified the sheet metal brake into this monstrosity. Up until now, when we've used the sheet metal brake, we've wanted a nice big soft radius so that I don't like bang my elbow on stuff and stuff like that. But for the bottom of the door, where the door meets the bottom of the sill, we want the tightest radius we can. And that's a bit of a problem because we're using quite thick steel, we're using 1mm thick steel. And every single thickness of sheet or tube or anything has what's called a bending radius. And that is an angle that it likes to bend at before it starts to either tear or kink or something and do stuff that you really don't want it to do. So to get the tightest radius we can, we've cut the bottom of the of this top piece as square and tight as possible. It's now like a blade, and we've erected this and this. And what these do is, because we're asking the steel that doesn't want to bend at a really tight angle to bend at a really tight angle, it actually wants to bend these two big pieces of angle and these two big pieces of angle. It wants to kind of splay it out like that in the middle when you start to bend it. So these pull on the sides and push down in the middle to prevent that bowing. Otherwise what happens is you end up with a really tight radius at the ends and kind of not very tight radius in the middle, which is no good. And we've also made it 90 degrees so that we can get the beginning of that bend as tight as possible. So at first it goes up to 90 degrees and then we have to move it back to 45 degrees and then finish it off. But it gives us the tightest bend possible.
It's unbelievable how much force it takes just to bend a piece of 1mm steel.
There we go. Channel section. Right, we have to bend it the other way now. We have to bend it upwards because it has to have a door seal on it. But this is the trickiest one. Not only because we've bent it a bunch of different ways and that makes it stiffer, but also because it's right next to the key. It's right next to this one, and it's the opposite way. So therein lies the challenge, and it's not straight as well. Because don't forget that one side of my car is 15mm deeper than this side is 15mm deeper than this side. So this top door seal bend isn't straight. Two pieces of wood underneath it, like this, to space it away, because obviously we've put a bunch of bends in it, and those bends means that it hits here. So if we put wood underneath it, it spaces it off this, but still allows us to bend it. I think it's sheer just difficulty to bend it. One of the problems with making something of this size is that when you bend a piece of steel one way and then you bend it the other way, it becomes incredibly stiff and you tend to lose some of the first bend. Usually in the middle it tends to bow. The way to get that out is to use two bits of oak, clamp them together in a big vise, and then use a hammer and another bit of wood, go along and gently tap it into shape. And it's very difficult to do without dinting the steel itself, because it becomes incredibly stiff, and yet at the same time it's still 1mm thick, so it's easier to dint it if you hit it too hard or in the wrong way. But this is one of the reasons why we put the gentle radius in it first, because if we'd have done all these bends and then tried to put the gentle radius in it, it would just be too stiff to bend. It would be too stiff to put a radius in. And when this thing is welded in the car, it's going to be incredibly strong, even stronger than the original GTM floor pan for the same weight. And there we have it, one driver's side sill. And I know what you're thinking, we need a passenger side one, which is why we've made this one. Ta-da! And the big question is, are they both the same? The answer to it is yes! Pandora is officially better than a Ferrari 250 GTO. Right. The next thing we have to do is we have to trim this edge down because it's too long, and we have to cut in so that it fits around the roll cage at the front. Yay! We're not going to fully fit it today, we're not going to finish it because there's still a lot of welding to do on the roll cage. That's just going to take time, and now that Dad's fingers, well, it's not grown back, it's never going to grow back, it's gone. Sorry, I can't stop laughing now. And now my dad's fingers healed, he can finally get on to doing some work and finishing off the welding. Do something, you poor bugger. He can finally finish welding the roll cage. And we're making all of these panels loose, and the reason we're doing that is so that we can paint the backs of them before they go in, because some of these panels, things like the inner sills, are going to be one colour on one side and one colour on the other side. So we have to paint everything before it gets assembled, because once it all goes together, that's going to be very tricky. looks a little bit bulbous at the minute, but that's all part of the plan because there's a gap here. And that gap is caused by the fact that I need to cut the bottom of the chassis legs all on a radius, basically to follow the profile of the door bars that are inside the sill. And when I strip the car down to weld the underneath, I'll chop these out and put the jacking points in, because the jacking points, there's one jacking point under each stanchion leg. And then when that happens, this sill panel will sit flush, this radius here will sit flush up against the chassis leg, and this entire panel will pull it in. But I can't do it yet until I strip all the car down, because I've got to take the body off and all of that. Hello, as you can see, the chassis rail tapers inward at this point, but the sill carries on straight. The reason for that is I didn't need this bit of leg room for my legs. After all, it's kind of calf room and not really leg room. And on the original chassis, this part is actually square. But because I moved the front wheels further forward, it frees up this space. And I don't need it for my legs, but I do need it for something else. On this side, it's going to become the battery box. There is going to be a small lithium battery that lives in here. And on the other side, it's going to be my screen wash bottle. And you might think that's slightly weird, but it actually works out perfectly because it keeps the weight as far inward and as low down as absolutely possible. There is not a lower point on this car that the battery or the screen wash bottle could actually go. And when a screen wash bottle's full, it actually contains quite a bit of liquid. So having it behind the axle line and really low down is the perfect place to put it. The original place for the battery was right up here near what would have been the driver's head. And when you consider the mini engine, the original one was 150 to 165 kilos at least, because 150 kilos is the weight of a mini engine with nothing on it. No accessories, no manifolds, no nothing. Plus that 30, plus that, whatever that battery weighs, 20 something kilos. This K-Series is actually lighter than the original mini engine, while producing over 100% more power and being 2 litres and having tons of torque and a 6-speed gearbox and all of that. So that's great news. And our new placement is as low as a battery can possibly be in this car. It's pretty much as low as anything can be in this car, but it's absolute optimal placement for optimal handling, and that's the important thing, because it gets the weight distribution right where we need it to be. Well, there we have it, 2 new Sills, or rockers if you're American. Now, they aren't finished, they need some finishing off, and obviously the roll cage legs need cutting down and all of that. But having said that, I'm really, really pleased with what we've achieved with just basic hand tools and stuff we've made ourselves. No real special equipment, you know, we modified the sheet metal brake, and we used bits of wood and PVC pipe and a piece of roll cage tubing and brute force. And we've made 2 Sills. This is something that we've never done before. It's something that I didn't know how to do, and I was slightly tentative, I'll be honest. I was slightly nervous going into this about getting it right. But it just goes to show, just because you've never done something before, and just because you're feeling a bit tentative, there's no reason not to do it. In fact, just do it and then keep doing it until it's done. And the profile looks slightly wonky at the minute, and the reason is the roll cage legs need chopping and this needs pulling in. But when it does, when we do pull it in, it'll look amazing. And the body doesn't quite fit at the minute. This side needs to go that way and that side needs to come this way. And of course, we chopped out the rigidity there, so it's kind of melting onto the roll cage a little bit. But this thing fit like sunglasses on a pig to begin with, so it's not really that detrimental. And everything, obviously, the front end's just balanced on at the minute. But oh, I'm so happy, so happy. I'm waiting on a couple of pieces at the minute, waiting on some rear wheel bearings. Once we get some rear wheel bearings in, we can finally tell the rear width properly, and it's no longer an approximation, which means that we can finally get the location of the engine right. We know approximately, but only within, you know, 5 or 10 millimeters, and that's not close enough. So Once we get some wheel bearings in, we can tell how long the shafts want to be. We can get that all sorted out properly, and then we can do the rear of the chassis. And the good news about having all of these loose panels is that we can paint everything before any of the panels get welded on. So all the roll cage will be painted before anything gets put on, and as will a bunch of the panels. Any panel that's kind of not accessible later on will get painted before it gets put in. But I'm massively happy. A lot of people said to me when I first bought Pandora, you're really happy now, but in a year's time you won't be. In a year's time the love will have faded and the frustration will have set in, but it hasn't. I am more in love with this car today than I was the day that I bought it. And the reason is, the day that I bought it, it couldn't have been any worse. Okay, it could. It couldn't. If it didn't roll, it not rolling would have been worse. But we still had to carry it into the van. But other than that, like, it was, and it was an inch shorter on one side than the other, and that's not intentional. It's not a Renault 4. Like, it had been crashed, it was bent, it was rusty, it was fire damage, and everything that could have been wrong with it was wrong with it. And now we are getting to the stage that we were at when I bought it, if you will. We are getting a floor pan sorted, and it's, I'm not going to say soon, but in good time we'll have a rolling chassis again. But it won't be bent and it won't be rusted. It will be stronger, stiffer, lighter, and better in every single way. And I cannot wait now. I have dreams every night about driving this car. I'm obsessed. I'm driving my entire family insane. And on that note, I need to say a massive thank you to my dad for his help today, because I couldn't have done it without him. So thank you for watching. Thank you to my dad for helping. And if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is to share these videos with your friends, click like, and tell me what you think down in the comments. I know some of you won't like it and some of you will love it and stuff, but that's life and it's my car and I'm happy, so that's all that matters. Okay, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.